The year was 2009. I had just joined Panaya 2 months earlier as a senior director of marketing, soon to become the VP of marketing. And I was tasked with setting up a trade show 2 months after I joined the company, one of the biggest industry trade shows for ERP software in Orlando. It was SAP Sapphire. I think there were about 10,000, 12,000 people at the show. And I had a small budget at the time, and we were thinking, what could we do to generate as many leads as we could? Panaya was still a newcomer in the industry. We had just started selling a quarter or two before I joined, and we wanted to make the most of our time and budget at the show. So we set up some nice gimmicks. We opened up our laptops with a short demo of what we were doing, took our best salespeople to the show, and we came back with 300 leads. Pretty good, right? 300 leads. That was the number we came back with, which I still think is a pretty good number when you do things the standard way. And then we came back from the show. We converted many of those leads into opportunities and into sales. And a short while after the show, we started thinking about next year. We being our CMO at the time, Amit Bendov, the person who I learned everything I know from, and myself, we were sitting and we thought, what if we could bring back 1,000 leads from the show? What would we need to do? What would it take to bring back 1,000 leads from the show? Well, obviously, we can't meet 1,000 leads and talk to them for 20 minutes like we did this year and give them a demo of the product. We need to do something a little bit differently. And that's when we came up with a very different way of doing things, which I want to share with you today. Fast forward a few years, we went to a similar show, to Oracle Open World, and we came back with 4,567 leads. Here's how we did it. Oracle Open World, just so you understand, it's an annual event. The hotel rooms in the city are sold out a year in advance. So if you didn't order a block of 10 or 20 rooms for your team 12 months before the show, you will be sleeping outside the city and commuting every morning. Not a fun experience. The show brings in 60,000 visitors, making it the second largest enterprise software show in the world. You know what the biggest one is? Dreamforce. Dreamforce, organized by Salesforce. That's the largest enterprise software trade show. So they bring in 60,000 people. There are more than 500 exhibitors. And now, go generate your leads in that situation. How do you even start? Okay? So what we had budget for was a 20 by 20 booth, or in the metric system, a 6 meter by 6 meter booth. Okay? It's not huge. It's not huge, but it's a nice size. And the goal was lead generation. Now, I just want to say a word about the goal because a booth can have several goals. It can be lead generation. It can be meeting with decision makers. It can be about strengthening our brand. And just like some speakers said right before me, and I entirely agree, you need to pick one goal and focus on that. You cannot optimize for 3 goals. You cannot do that. You can't optimize your email, your website, or your trade show booth for more than one goal. You can have secondary goals, but your boss needs to understand that they're secondary goals, and you're going after one goal which you will be measured by. And our goal at this show was lead generation. At the end of the presentation, I'll tell you where you can learn more about achieving other goals at shows. So, we quickly realized there were 4 key success factors to reaching our goal of maximizing lead generation at this booth. One of them was the booth itself. Where will we locate it? What size will it be? How will we make it more visible? What kind of configuration should it have? The second success factor was, what is the call to action? Now, this one I want to dwell on for a moment, or as my CMO used to say, what's the big plan? Now, what's he talking about? We set up a booth, we smile, we hand out brochures, and we hope to collect a lot of leads. No, no, no. What's the big plan? Why are people going to line up at our booth and give us their business cards? I don't know, because we're fast talkers, because they're interested in upgrading their ERP software. No, that's not going to cut it. What is the call to action? This is the most important factor in any marketing campaign. Why people are going to convert on your homepage, or download your ebook, or click on your email, or leave their business card at your booth. What is the call to action? And I'll tell you a bit more about how we did that in just a minute. The third thing is the giveaway. Okay, the giveaway. Remember those memo pads, the mints, the water bottles? Okay, throw all those out. Let's talk about giveaways that actually work and get people lining up. And I'll talk a bit about what we did at this booth and give you some principles to work by when you plan your next booth. And the fourth and final thing, but very, very important, is staffing. Who do I take to work at the booth? Do I take all the marketing team because this is their day out and they worked so hard and they want to be at the show? No. Do I take the product guys because they really want to meet customers and ask them about feedback about the product? God, no. Do I take the CEO because he's there, he wants to talk to people and he bought a suit in Kmart for $50 because he's never been to the US before and he looks like a schlumper but he wants to stand at the booth? No, you just tell him to go away from the booth. I'll talk about staffing, about who they should be and where you want to put them and what you want them to do. So let's go over these four and then see what the results were. I'll start with the booth, okay? Read this very carefully. No, I'm kidding. There are only three things you need to see about the slide. One is location. So when we went to the Oracle Open World Show, we had two choices of choosing where our booth would be located. There's the larger hall, the databases hall, where most of the big companies are. And then there's the much smaller hall called the applications hall. For those of you who don't know, Oracle has been in the database business for years, so most of its business and customers and partners are around databases. In recent years, it's been growing in the applications domain, so there's a smaller hall for exhibitors and visitors in that domain. Which hall would you go to? Who would go to the large database hall? Raise your hand. Okay, we've got a few. Who would go to the smaller applications hall? Raise your hand. Okay. How would you know which hall to go to before you ask me what our company does? People, focus. Panaya was selling a product for automating the upgrade of Oracle applications, okay? And that's how we decided where to go to. Rather than go to the big hall where all the big boys are and most of the traffic is, but none of that traffic is relevant to us because we don't support Oracle databases at all. So we chose the smaller hall. And that's where we set up our booth because the traffic there was less than in the big hall, but it was far more qualified. Okay? So think about where you want to set up your booth depending on what kind of traffic you want to attract. The second thing we want to think about is configuration. Now, without going into all the details, a few of the things you need to consider are, do I want an aisle booth? That means I have two booths on both of my sides. It's usually the cheapest and easiest to set up, but it has the least visibility. Do I want a corner booth? Which means I'm at the corner of an aisle, so I've got a booth on each side, but now I have two open walls, which means I have more visibility and I'm attracting traffic from both aisles. That'll cost you a little more and it requires a little bit of creativity in designing the booth because you have less wall space, but you can actually put your people now on two aisles. Do you want to take that a step up and get a peninsula booth? Peninsula booth, as the name suggests, has three open sides, so you're at the end of an aisle. You only have one back wall, which makes the design a bit challenging because you have very little space for your messaging, for your furniture. You have three open sides. This feels very exposed to many people, and they find it difficult running a booth like that. But now you're getting traffic from three different aisles. And finally, how about an island booth? An island booth, as the name suggests, is an island, completely open and exposed on all four sides. You're basically renting the space and you need to set up everything yourself. It's the most complex booth to set up. You need to plan this way ahead. You have here companies that can help you do that. You want to design the booth, you have to bring all your own furniture, but then you're attracting traffic from all four sides and you can do things like build upwards. And that brings us to visibility. You want your booth to be visible from everywhere in the hall. Now, remember, we have 500 exhibitors, maybe 200 in our hall. It's a huge area. I want people to know that we're here, even when they're at the entrance or at the other end of the hall. So how can we achieve that? I'll show you in just a minute. Now, going back to the call to action, why would people line up at my booth and give me their business card? Why? Some of them want to see a 20-minute demo of my product. They have no friends. No, I'm kidding. But some of them want to see a 20-minute demo of my product, but wait. If I'm selling a product, and in this time I'm selling a software as a service that I can demo over the web and over the phone, why would I spend the most expensive time of the year standing at a booth for 2 days and give 20-minute demos rather than schedule those for next week when I'm back home? I can sift through all the business card, I can approach those that I want, and then give them a 20-minute demo over the phone. Why not use the time at the booth to generate as many leads as I can, which means shortening the time that I'm spending with every lead. All I'm trying to do is collect them all and then sort through them when I'm back home. Okay, so it's a shift of how you think about your time at the booth. It's not about qualifying them. It's not about selling to them. It's just about collecting them. I want to take your business card and kick you out of the booth because you're standing where someone else could be standing now, and I could be taking their business card. Now, remember, I'm talking about a booth whose number one goal is lead generation. If you have other goals, we'll talk about that later. So we decided that a 20-minute demo is probably not going to cut it for the thousands of people that we wanted to talk to at the booth. We decided if we give them a lighthearted game with some attractive prizes, now we're talking, okay? Now, for that game, we needed to give away prizes, and that brings us back to giveaways. What are the considerations for a good giveaway? Should it be something branded with my logo on it? Maybe. Will that make them stand in line for it? Probably not. It should have some real value to them, okay? So obviously if you're giving away kitchen appliances, that has great value, but it's probably going to be expensive and heavy to carry away. So you want to think something that they can carry around, hopefully can be seen by others, so they ask them, hey, where'd you get that cool whatchamathingy? You can brand it if you want to, but I'm not a big fan of branding if you don't have the resources or time to do that. But it has to be either cool or useful or both. Never boring. So forget about the mints and the memo pads and the baseball hats. And the only time I think it's legitimate to give away t-shirts if they're really, really cool. Okay, you can see some examples outside here at some of our booths. But don't give away a boring t-shirt with your logo plastered over it. Unless you're paying me to be your billboard, I'm not going to walk around with that. Okay? And I can talk a lot about giveaways, and later I'll show you where you can hear me talk a lot about it. But for today, all I'm going to say is that the bottom line, if you give away a cool toy for children, for almost any type of exhibition, that will be a bestseller at your booth. And why? Because most of us are selling to grown-ups. Grown-ups have children. They have nieces and nephews. They have grandchildren. And you're going to save them a stop at the airport, the last-minute expensive shopping. Oh, I forgot to get my son something. So if you give them a nice toy that can be subtly branded, okay? You can put your logo on the tuchus of the teddy bear, but don't plaster it all over his shirt, because that's just going to be ugly. Subtly brand the t-shirt and give away a cool toy. So it could be a remote control helicopter. It can be a kite. It can be some game for children. It can be a children's t-shirt. Give away something that will bring a smile, will bring out the inner child in all of us, and everyone who walks by will say, hey, I can use that. I've got a daughter or a son or a nephew or a niece or a grandson or a granddaughter. That will appeal to everyone, okay? So it has to be something for everyone. I want to dwell on that point again. Many times I'm asked, what works best? Raffling one expensive $500 prize or giving away $252 prizes? Who thinks a raffle of a $500 prize works best? Okay. Who thinks giving away $252 prizes will work best? Okay. We've got a smart audience. The ones that are at the end, they're the hardcore. You guys are the smart ones. Okay, why will that work best? There are two psychological principles in action here. One is our need for immediate gratification. If I'm walking by and I see a raffle is happening at some unknown time, I have no idea where I'm going to be at that time. I have no idea if the raffle is rigged or not, because they're usually going to give it away to their biggest account anyway, right? So I'm not getting my need for immediate gratification fulfilled. So that's one thing that I want. The other thing that I want is certainty. Okay, if I see a huge pile of teddy bears at the booth and everyone walking by the booth going away with a teddy bear, I'm getting a sense of certainty. I can get that right now. So even if I have to stand in line for 30 seconds, wait for the guys before me to get their teddy bears, I'm going to do that because I'm certain I'm going to leave the booth with a teddy bear. But I'm not going to stand in line for 5 minutes just to put my business card in some fish bowl that I know they're going to use to spam me, and I have no idea if I'm going to win the prize. I mean, what are my chances? If 1,000 people are leaving their business card, I've got a tiny chance of winning, right? So give everyone a $2 prize. It works much, much better than the $500 prize. This is my experience, and I'll show you how we did it. And the last thing about giveaways is make them clearly visible. You've spent the money. You've spent hundreds or thousands of dollars on giveaways. Now, your salespeople, they will hide them under the desk, and they'll only give them to someone who looks very serious. I'm not going to waste this exclusive memo pad on just anyone walking by the booth. No. I want to grill him for 10 minutes. I want to make sure he's a decision maker, he's got a budget, and he's running at me with the check in his hand. Then I'll give him a memo pad. No. People, you've planned. You've figured out what is going to be an attractive price for your audience. Show it. Plaster it all over your booth. You should have it in display cases. And if you're worried about people snitching them on the way, I'll show you in a minute how we solve that problem as well. The fourth and final key success factor is staffing. A few things about staffing. Pre-qualification. We do not want to qualify them or sell to them at the booth. We want to pre-qualify them because at a large show like Oracle Open World, there are thousands of people that are very relevant to my business, but there are thousands of others that are not. How can I sift through them so I'm not giving away the prizes and spending my time with people who are totally irrelevant? You think of one simple, short question that the answer or body language of your respondent immediately tells you if this guy is worth pursuing or not. In our case, we were selling to customers of the Oracle e-Business Suite application. Okay? So what did we do? We asked everyone that came by the booth, which version of EBS are you using? And the answers varied from 7.5, 8.1, 10.0. Sure, come and play our game, sir, and win a prize. And other people went like, I'm not sure, EBS, EB what? As soon as they said that, I said, oh, we're sorry, we're playing a game only for EBS customers. Have a nice day, ma'am. And then they went along their way, and they didn't mess up my database with unnecessary junk. So that's a kind of pre-qualification you want to do. If you know that many of the audience members are not going to be relevant to your database, clean them out in advance. But don't start grilling them with 10 questions, because then you're back to wasting your time and theirs when you can do this back at the office. Second thing is be proactive. I didn't bring today the photos with me, but I use them at my workshop on trade shows. I show actual exhibitors that I photographed at shows sitting and having their lunch in the booth with their back to the audience, checking their email, having a sandwich. Their company just paid like $50,000 to be at that show, and they've just wasted a whole hour on eating their sandwich and sitting with their back to the audience. You have to be proactive. You have to stand at the very edge of your booth until the organizers come and push you back inside. You have to pull people in from the aisles. Never put a piece of furniture between you and the audience. Don't put a podium. Don't put a desk here. Stand, be open with your arms open. Don't stand like this. Don't huddle with other exhibitors. Never sit down at the booth. Don't eat. Don't check your emails. Don't smoke. Don't do anything that would make you less approachable to people walking by. You want to be proactive and grab them in. Don't just sit there and wait for them to come and ask you, so what do you guys do? Those are the bored consultants. Trust me, I know. The next thing is what kind of staff to use. And you have two options. You can fly out your company staff, presumably from Israel, or you could use local staff. There are advantages in using local staff. Usually if you're going to a large show, in the show booklet, in the exhibitor's guide, you'll get options to hire local staff. If not, you can look for them. They're pretty easy to find. Now, the advantages of hiring local staff are pretty clear. One, they cost between $250 and $500 a day, which is much cheaper than flying someone from Israel, paying for their travel cost, hotel, lost working days, food, etc. And the second thing is they're good for only certain types of tasks. So I would not hire local staff to start giving lengthy explanations about my product. But in this type of booth, I'm not giving lengthy explanations about my product anyway, aren't I? So what I would do is I would hire local staff to do something very, very simple, like scan leads, scan their badges when they come by, give them balls to throw for the game, say one sentence about what we do, and ask them the pre-qualifying question. And I would leave all the rest of the work that requires some heavier interviewing and understanding the customer needs. I'd leave that to my real company salespeople that I will fly out. But you can fly out a lot less people and have more staff by correctly utilizing local staff at your show. So I do acknowledge and recommend that you do that. This is the booth that I've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. I want to very quickly go through the 4 elements that I just described and show you how we implemented them in this booth and what the results were, because I'm pretty sure you're curious. So, we start with the booth. Like I told you, we located our booth in the applications hall because even though there were less customers there, this was the relevant audience for our booth. So look for the best place to find your audience and not necessarily where there's overall more traffic or where your competitors are. Maybe they're in the wrong place. The second thing is, you can see the configuration here is an island booth. It has the best visibility because people can see us from all 4 aisles. Okay? Granted, this is the most expensive booth that you can plan compared to other options of the island, the aisle, the corner, and the peninsula booth. In many cases, if your budget allows for it, this is the best option to go for. Yes, it requires longer planning. You'll need to design your own custom booth because you're basically just renting the space. But I can guarantee you that all other things being equal, you will get the best results for this configuration of booth. Finally, visibility. We designed our booth to be double the height of a standard booth. You can't even see the top of it, it's so high. So the top of the booth is visible from way back in the hall, drawing in visitors to come see what we're doing because we chose very bold colors. You can see very little graphics. A lot of people make the mistake and they think that their booth is a brochure. People, this is a booth, this is a brochure. Two different things. You do not print 20 bullet points with all your features, customers' testimonials, partners, how to join us. You do not print this on your booth. The booth should have ideally one sentence, keep it down to 5 words, your logo, and one visual if you have to. This booth doesn't even have any visuals on it. It has our logo, you can see it at the bottom on the booth, and it has it at the top where it's cropped out of the photo here. One color, there's gray and red, which are also reminiscent of the Oracle brand, which we wanted to be affiliated with. There's no graphics, there are no bullet points, no customer logos, no what we do. The goal here was lead generation. I was not here to educate anyone. I was not here to draw them in to ask questions about the product. I was here to generate leads. And this is how we optimized it, okay? Keep it high, clear, striking design. Make your booth look different. If you go to an enterprise software booth and your booth is blue and gray because you think it exudes authority and responsibility, congratulations, you look just like the 20 other booths right next to you, okay? Do something a little bit different. Let's talk about the call to action. So we designed a game. You can see the signs at the top, they say win here. And you can see the target that we put in the middle of the booth. Now we actually had 4 of these targets. You can see that big column in the middle of the booth. So it has one of those targets on every one of the 4 sides. So there are 4 targets clearly visible from each aisle. And as you approach the booth, you hit the white line on the carpet where we ask you to stand, we give you a sponge ball, and we ask you to throw it at the target. If you hit the bullseye, you get the grand prize, which is a helicopter. I'll talk about the prize in a minute. If you hit anywhere else, you'll get a teddy bear, a consolation prize. So everybody wins. Now, why did this game work so well and we had people literally lining up for it? First of all, we took a game that requires very little skill. It does not embarrass anyone. It does not require any physical strength, which would exclude many women, older people, younger people, people who don't want to embarrass themselves. But this is a fun, lighthearted game. We're throwing a sponge ball at the target. It doesn't weigh anything. We're pretty close to the target, so we had many, many winners. And it includes everyone rather than excludes anyone. Okay? So this is the game, and we advertised it by putting up the signs, win here, which are clearly visible from far away. And as you approach the booth, it was clearly visible what you're supposed to do. Throw the ball at target, win a prize. Okay? Obviously, we scan your badge when we give you the ball to throw. Okay. Let's talk about the giveaways. So we had 2 giveaways here, following the principles that I talked about earlier. Something for everyone. We bought thousands of teddy bears. We bought hundreds of helicopters. Yes, they were a significant part of our budget. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. I remember the first time I came to Panaya's CEO and I asked him, oh, could you sign here a PO for 5,000 teddy bears? You're like, what? But he did, and he was very happy he did. Since then, he's signed off on tens of thousands of more. They all magically transformed into leads and then transformed into business. So there's something for everyone. We chose 2 cool toys. A high-end one, the remote control helicopter, which, let's face it, is really, really cool. And the teddy bear, which is a nice consolation prize, and still any child, almost of any age, would be happy to get one, right? And then the final thing is we made them clearly visible, and look at how many ways we did that. First of all, we had signage up at the top showing the prizes from people coming afar. You're winning a cool helicopter. Secondly, we put them up on high shelves that we could not reach. They were just for display, those helicopters. The rest were hidden under the booth, but people could see the ones up on top, so they could not be stolen. And finally, the smaller teddy bears, we stuck in clear acrylic cases on all 4 sides of the booth, so they were clearly visible to anyone coming, but no one can pull them out except the staff that was standing behind. Okay? So there you go. We've put in the thought to choose a giveaway that will be very attractive to everyone. We're not hiding it, but we're displaying it so people know what they're getting. And we're appealing to their need for immediate gratification and certainty by showing them that everyone walks away with a prize. Okay? So that's giveaways done right. Finally, staffing. So, following the principles that I talked about earlier, proactive. You can see all the people in the white polo shirts. They are Panaya staff. They're standing right outside the booth area, living on the edge, pulling people in from the aisles, not playing with their phones, not waiting to be approached. Second is pre-qualification. You can see here Richard asking someone, so which version of EBS are you running? And if he gives him the right answer, he will send him to Sandra that will scan his booth and give him a sponge ball to throw at the target. Otherwise, he'll say, have a nice day, sir. And finally, we use here a combination of both company and local staff. You couldn't really tell them apart. Okay, let's face it, the local staff are much prettier, but still, you couldn't really tell them apart because we did not dress them up in cocktail evening suits. We dressed them up in our official company logo shirts. We wanted them to look like part of our staff, so they were not easily distinguishable as local staff. And we gave them the simple parts of just asking a question, scanning the leads, and administering the game, while our company staff are the aggressive ones standing outside, bringing in the people and grilling them once they've been determined to be qualified. Okay? So this is how we set this up. Let's talk about results. I know I had to skim through a lot of it. I'll tell you soon where you can learn more. At this 2.5-day show, using this exact booth that I showed you, we scanned 4,567 leads. Let's take a moment to absorb that. We scanned 4,567 leads. The number is so beautiful, I would not have believed it was real unless I was the one actually importing the leads into Salesforce. I did it, so I can tell you there were 4,567 leads. Hundreds of those were qualified in the 3 months after the show. This is enterprise software. Sales cycles are pretty long. Hundreds of them were qualified. Dozens of them turned into wins. Just to give you an idea, the average deal size at Panaya is around $70,000. I cannot reveal the exact numbers. I can tell you that the ROI on the investment made at this show was well over 10x the investment. So I invested a significant amount in the booth, but for every dollar investment, a year later, I could show $10 in the bank. Okay? And ROI calculation on trade shows is a complex thing. I'll tell you in a minute where you can learn more about that. For those who don't know, earlier this year, Panaya was sold for $200 million to Infosys. No doubt, part of the business results were a result of these tactics that we used at trade shows, which generated a significant portion of Panaya's business. Finally, this is time to pull out your cameras. Ready? The 10 commandments of a killer lead generation booth. Here it is, go. We talked about 3 elements of booth design: location, configuration, and visibility. We talked about the call to action. Play to win will always work. Giveaways. Make sure there's something for everyone because that will appeal to our need for certainty and immediate gratification. Cool toys will always work because we have children or nephews or nieces. We have to get them off our back somehow. Make them clearly visible. Do not hide the prizes. This is why people are coming. Remember, they don't care about your product. They're there for the prize. Show them in everywhere you can, on signage, on high shelves, in clear acrylic cases. And finally, staffing. Make sure you train them to be proactive. So the best people, we didn't talk about that, but the best people are salespeople because their quota depends on this. They are the ones who should be standing on the outskirts of the booth. Use a combination of company and local booth where applicable. You could save a lot of money and have more staff, which will help you get more leads. And finally, don't try and qualify or sell to them, but only do pre-qualification if you know that a large portion of the audience is not going to be relevant to your business. Then ask them one simple question that will help you pre-qualify them. Today we talked about how to build a killer lead generation booth. I started by saying there are many other goals your booth could have, like talking to the decision makers, like branding yourself and creating more awareness. If you want to learn more about that, you can come to the Emcee Forum workshop next week. This is next Wednesday, November 4th, 9:30 in the morning in Ramat Gan. You have a call to action in the orange button. Call Hannah or write her an email. She's very nice. She's waiting to talk to you. And this is a workshop that we do at least once a quarter. It's a 3-hour workshop. And what I showed you today is just a small part of what you'll be learning there. We'll be talking about all the other types of booths and how to reach all those goals. We'll be taking questions and helping everyone there achieve their goals at the next trade show. So this is next Wednesday. You should get on the phone tomorrow with Hannah if you want to sign up. Finally, I want to run a little psychological experiment on you. There's a very subtle, almost subconscious sales message in the next slide. See if you can spot it. Okay, this is my book. You can get it up front. This is my book. It's actually an Amazon #1 bestseller in the industrial marketing category. It's called The 50 Secrets of Trade Show Success. If you haven't ordered it yet, you can get it at the registration desk outside. It contains pretty much everything that we heard today, plus a lot of other information, examples, and photographs from actual shows on what worked for us and what didn't. So there's a whole wealth of information for you to learn from there. You can also get it at bit.ly/showsecrets, which will bring you to the Amazon page for that book. And finally, if you still haven't had enough of me, this is how you can reach me. You can scan the QR code and get the V card with all my contact details. And that is how we generated 4,567 leads at a trade show booth. Thank you.